Hold on. What's that? Wait, hold on. I have something. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Paul.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Paul.
Oh.
I have a gift for you. It took me a while. It just came in. Came all the way from an exotic.
no.
But I hope you like it.
Oh, thanks. He needs one of those.
I do.
Actually, high demand, to be totally honest.
They're in extremely high demand, so much so that Disney Vacation Club's now giving them away to people on cruise ships. So, well, thank you guys. That was wonderful. Thank you.
3 weeks of rehearsal for that.
I was wondering.
I'm surprised you didn't get this one in on it somehow.
That's okay. I don't sing.
You do sing sometimes when you want to.
That cake. We saw pictures of that cake.
That cake, when I blew out the candles on the cake, sprinkles went all over the table. So
Yeah.
a lot of them
We're still cleaning them off
We're
the counter.
still finding them in random
days
places.
later.
But thank you guys. It was a good birthday. I had a good cruise to celebrate, and then came back and got back
That
in the
cruise-
swing of things.
A lot of fun. It did.
Oh,
It
yes.
was a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it a lot more on another upcoming show. But. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show. I'm your host, Paul Krieger, joined as always by my lovely wife, Amy Krieger.
Hello.
We've got John Sakari, aka Big Fat Panda, in the house.
Welcome home, everyone.
Senior Sales Associate for the DVC Resale Market, Derek DeBoer.
Hey now.
And the one, the only, Mr. Jeff Haslam.
Hey, everybody.
Well, if
Look at
you
that
guys...
office. That office looks fantastic. I love that picture.
It
Thank you.
does, yeah.
Thank
Did you take the picture?
I did take the picture.
Ooh, perfect. Yeah, it looks
Now I
looks
have
very
a whole
nice.
bunch more I want to print because I'm so happy with the way this one turned out.
I feel like your backdrop just changes every week, and it's what we're excited for. That and Derek's shirt; those are the two things that change weekly, and
That's right.
everyone tunes in for that. And hopefully, they did not tune out after you guys all sang to kick off the show. But yeah, welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show. If you didn't notice by the title of the video, we are talking all things buying Disney Vacation Club this week, specifically as it results to 2024 and kind of the nuances that are new or things that have changed in the buying process here this year. But before we get into that, as always, this and all of our content here on DVC Fan is brought to you by the world of DVC. DVC Resale Market. If you're looking to buy or sell a Disney Vacation Club contract, Resale Market can help you with that purchase. Monera Financial, if you're looking to finance that contract purchase, Monera can help you with some financing options. And the DVC rental store, where you can try before you buy, rent some DVC points, rent out your own points, swap your points for a universal vacation, a cruise, whatever you want. So please show some love for our sponsors over there. But how are you guys doing this week? I feel like we have been on a cruise ship for like a week and a half. So I feel like I haven't talked to any of you for a while. So
Doing good.
We're
Yeah.
great. Perfect.
okay, great conversation. That was short and sweet. That was beautiful.
I'm super excited for next weekend. May the 4th be with you, everybody.
Yes. Yep. And you have a little friend now too, don't you?
I do have a little friend. He's my new droid. He's pretty sweet. He sits on your shoulder.
Aw.
Does he have a name?
His official name is boring. I got to think of like a real name for him, but of course now he's
Is
not going
he
to work.
the
'cause I'm on camera.
droid that comes down and rise in the beginning?
Yeah.
Is that the
Well,
droid?
no. I think he's different. But anyway.
He does look different. He's similar though.
Yeah.
He's a little lost in space.
Wait,
Hey, little buddy. It freaks my dogs right out. They don't like him at all.
Did you hear what he said? He said, add on. I couldn't believe it. That's
Buy a contract.
But yeah, I will be at Hollywood Studios on May the 4th. They've got new merch coming out that I'm going to try and get my hands on. So
I'm hearing some of that merch is Galaxy's, not Galaxy's Edge, Star Cruiser merch. I don't know if that's true.
That's already there. You can find that in like the little outdoor mall that they have there. They have a lot of the Galaxy's Edge, or excuse me, the
So
Star Cruiser like outfits and stuff like that you can buy. But
Oh wow.
I've got my eye on a lightsaber that they're releasing on Saturday. So
Ooh.
Is the Star Cruiser stuff like discounted, like 40% off, or is it like even more expensive?
it's the same price.
I heard they took off discounts actually, which is weird.
Well, we are talking buying Disney Vacation Club this week, and hopefully if you are listening to this podcast or watching us and all of our antics, you probably have either bought a contract already or you are maybe considering doing so. And the process basically takes you down one of two different routes. You're either going to buy direct with Disney Vacation Club, maybe when you're on a vacation at Walt Disney World or on a Disney cruise ship or something like that, or you're going to maybe be adding on or do some research and decide that the resale market is a better route to buy your contract because you want to save some money and go the resale path. But we wanted to kind of overview both options in detail to kind of just give people an idea of what that process looks like, things you should look out for, how simple it is, how easy it is, all that kind of fun stuff. And I thought the best place to kind of start was to maybe just go around the room and give our experiences in buying some Disney Vacation Club. And Panda, you are probably the person that has bought most recently of this group of people. You bought, I think, in 2022. Is that correct?
That sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. And you went direct. Give us a little overview of just what that process looked like, because I know it wasn't completely the smoothest.
It was not. No, it was kind of disappointing. I think it's because I was also a weird, I'm a weird specimen for this because I was doing the show with you guys. So I was learning it all. And the people that I called, I already was ready. I knew that I wanted to buy. Thinking about it now, I don't know that I would have done direct. I had it in my head that the first purchase had to be direct because I needed the blue card I haven't used it yet. I have never used any of these so-called benefits of buying direct, and I probably could have got it half price. So I know if I did it again, I would do resale. But having gone forward, I think, again, I called and just said, hey, I'm ready to buy. I didn't give them anything to go on to try to sell me. I was already sold. So I didn't have that presentation. Nobody said, hey, come and we'll go look around. So even though I did go to the Riviera and look at like 2 rooms, but it was a weird process.
You were literally a vacation club guide's dream, Panda. For someone that says, I don't have to do a dog and pony show. I don't have to do any of this stuff. You literally just ready to buy. They're like,
yeah,
oh,
and it was
fantastic.
And it was Gib McCain that I know that and Amy and Paul knows and everybody. So he already knew, and I didn't have to go through a lot. But everything I did after that, I never met Gib. I went to the Riviera. I saw rooms with some other guide, and then everything was done online in a weird, non-intimate way. Everything was email, electronic signing, sending back, and then I think there was some call with. If it was a notary, maybe? There was some call with some non-DVC person.
Yeah. Oh, that was probably the quality assurance manager who called.
Okay.
That's all.
That could be.
Does anybody else feel, I know Panda just got a new card. Does anybody else feel like he walked onto the lot and said, I'd like to pay over sticker? So if somebody wants to give me a new card.
You read my mind of Amy's uncle one time.
You want to talk about getting robbed at the lot? They didn't even they saw them coming. They literally got dropped off and they had to buy a car to get home.
There were good incentives. Don't tell me they could have went lower on the price. I thought the price was set and the incentives are in.
Yeah, no, there's no haggling room. Our good friend Jeff and Dan, we were actually just on our Royal Caribbean cruise, and we booked at the next cruise desk, our next sailing, and they wanted to try to haggle the price down. And I was like, this is not. There's nothing you can do. Now somehow they got a bottle of champagne out of them. I don't know how they did that. Maybe just because
they smart.
Yeah, but they did get a bottle of champagne out of them. But no, there's no wiggle room to kind of bring that down. And Panda, you bought during what was kind of the transition period and what has been the norm for a period of time now, ever since the pandemic, which is more of that online process where there's very little face-to-face, there's very little hard selling that has to occur. I think that DVC has benefited from podcasts similar to this one that have kind of educated people on Disney Vacation Club. They've done enough marketing material themselves to kind of sell the product where people just are pretty confident, like you said, going in and knowing what they want to buy. The problem with that is it worked for a period of time coming out of the pandemic, but it brings us to where we are today in Disney Vacation Club is struggling. They are struggling with their direct sales. Yes, they are still selling contracts, but they have been struggling to appeal to certain demographics, certain audiences. And I think what they've identified is a lot of it is that lack of personal touch that you didn't really have, Panda. And so most recently, they've brought back the in-person tours. So those are what a lot of us that have been members for a while kind of remember. Those are those in-person tours that are conducted at Saratoga Springs, at the Disney Vacation Club Preview Center. They have model rooms there available, and that gives the guide the opportunity to get to know the family, understand their circumstances. And I know, Derek, you've done probably a million of these tours, over your time as a vacation club guide.
Yeah, and it's always been, excuse me, such a critical part of the process, because back when I was doing them, and this was quite a while ago, but you would meet families, and they, honest to God, 99% of them didn't even know what this was. Right. So you would go and you'd meet them and literally have to walk A to Z through what Disney Vacation Club was. And that was, part of how we were trained, being Disney Vacation Club guides. You do some discovery, you get to know the families. How many times have you been here? Where do you normally stay? Let me show you how the club works. Let me show you how simple and easy it is. Then you take them through the model rooms. You always ask them too, like before you go into the model rooms, and you say, so where are you guys staying again? Oh, we're staying at the All-Star. Okay, perfect. Before we go into this room, and this is a studio, I want you to visualize your room at the All-Star. And then you'd open up the door, right? And then they'd see a studio. And then you show them the 1-bedroom. And then you'd show them the 2-bedroom. And then you'd show them the 3-bedroom. And then by that point, people are like, how much does this cost? How much does this cost? Where do I sign? Where do I sign? And then you take them back and you kind of go through the numbers and financing. But you build a relationship with people. And I think that definitely is what they were missing. Because like Panda talked about, I mean, Gib McCain was my guide back when I bought at 1999. So, and he's still assigned to my Disney Vacation Club account. I haven't obviously added on direct points with him, but they're fantastic people. So you miss out on that building a relationship with people and getting to know them. And just to kind of touch on too, a big misnomer that a lot of people think is, oh my God, the DVC resale market must be excited because, direct sales are down. It's honestly the opposite. We want people to go on vacation and take those tours. We want people, because the reason is it all goes into our funnel, right? So all the people that learn about Disney Vacation Club and maybe don't buy while they're on vacation, the first thing they do when they get back home is, I'm going to Google Disney Vacation Club, and the resale market pops up. So it takes that funnel and it gives us more people to talk to. So we're honestly excited. The fact that the more tours that they can do, the more educated their audience becomes, because of course, this audience out here for the DVC fan and DVC show is such a fantastically educated audience. So by the time they come to us asking questions, they already know, basically almost A to Z, but they might have some questions about, maybe Q, or they might have some questions about, R. So in that whole alphabet of learning how Disney Vacation Club works, we're just there to kind of help them fill in the blanks. And again, make an educated decision, with us. That's what we pride ourselves on. There's no, oh God, you have to buy this today. The only, urgency that you have is if you see a listing that you like, and if it works, it can be sold. I mean, we're doing millions of dollars a week. So every day I have someone saying, hey, what happened to XXX listing that was so perfect for us? We're like, it's sold, so there's none of that. You have to buy while you're here on vacation. These promos are only good for a certain amount of time, but that's what, research is just so important. So we're excited that the, direct tours are back, because an educated guest are what we get, and we absolutely love that. But whether you know a lot or whether you know a little, we'll help you walk through the process. So you don't have to know everything when you call us and reach out to us. You might not know anything. Then we are more than happy to walk you through the whole entire process. And again, make a decision. Does this work for you? If it does, then maybe the resale is going to be a great way for you to go.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks to the sales process in general with anything these days. It has drastically changed in the past 10 years, even more so in the past 5 years. To Jeff's point earlier, the car buying process, we didn't buy, well, we did. We bought a car online, sight unseen. We bought and we sold a car online. And it was, both of those processes were very, very simple. And I go back to like the traditional days of going on the car lot and buying a car. If I were to step foot on a car lot today, I would have done 99% of the research online already. I would know that I could get this price here for this. And so I'd walk on the lot basically with that paperwork saying, if you can't do better than this, I'm done. Like, and so it really changes kind of how that whole sales process goes. And so I think that's where Disney Vacation Club has been a little bit slow to adapt, and you're going to experience more of that as you get more millennials buying. I don't want to bring up Royal Caribbean too much, but just the other day, Royal Caribbean had their earnings call related to cruise ships, and about 50% of all cruisers now are millennials, and that age bracket is growing in terms of those people being on those ships. So any type of travel industry is going to see the same sort of evolution here in the coming years. More millennials are buying, more millennials are thinking about vacations. Then you've got Zennials coming behind them. And all of these people are much more educated in terms of the buying process because of all of the resources that they have in front of them and in their hands.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny you mentioned that too, because it's almost like for us at the DVC resale market, we love it. The more educated you are, fantastic. When you're on vacation at Walt Disney World and you're taking a tour as a vacation guide, you kind of hope they maybe don't know too much. You kind of come in saying, that's what people do now, is saying, okay, this is great. Yeah. Listen, I know how everything works, but why should I buy direct for $200+ per point when I see the exact same thing or a different resort online for 50% off? So it's almost like that tour concept that they used to do to go from A to Z is now kind of like, oh, we're just going right into the resale question right off the bat. Okay, let me go ahead and
hold on. Let me get legal here so that I can make sure I say the right things at the right times. And
Disney DVC has notoriously been low pressure, I think, right? Like they don't. It's not like, hey, you got one day to make this decision. I just wonder if they're hurting now, if they're going to have to change tactics a little bit and be a little more salesy. I hope not. I really do.
I know what Jeff's thinking about. We had the same experience.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to touch on the fact that they're changing the way they do things. It's not just the tours in person, but it used to be like one booth per park that was staffed at any given time, or maybe two. Now they're all full with 3 people deep, and they've got the presence at Disney Springs now. It just seems like they've put a lot of more boots on the ground. But to Panda's point, I just took a tour with some friends. I kind of went undercover and kind of wanted to see how that process went. Because like you guys, I've never done that.
I'm sure you were recognized by someone.
I don't think so.
I hope not.
Jeff just showed up and said, I'm here to take a tour.
But what was interesting to me was that I don't want to call it high pressure because it wasn't. It was still go home and think about this. But they are really leaning into, if you book while you're staying on property and you book within 24 hours or 48 hours of checkout, you get an incentive of $500 off. Man, they push that over and over. Like in the 2.5 hours we sat with this dude, it was now, okay, I mean, I don't want to pressure you. The prices will be the same, but you get this extra if you do it today.
Do they let you use that on top of the Dream It Forward 500 promo?
Yes,
Okay.
yes they did. And that Dream It Forward promo is the biggest secret to them. Like, I finally asked at the end of the tour, I'm like, so can they, after all these things that you've done, because they were looking at Old Key West with the incentives that they have going. And they're like, well, we kind of want this Old Key West. We want this incentives. And I'm like, oh, and I could do my Dream It Forward, right? And they're like, yeah. Guess you can do that too. Like it was amazing to me. This is, back to the boots on the ground thing. I think they've thrown a lot of people into the fire here.
Yeah.
Without the training that should maybe come with it, because I think Lauren Dela Cruz was telling us about her experience that the person that was talking to her didn't really know a lot The guy that did mine was pretty knowledgeable, but as soon as he left the room, I was like, okay, so here's what's really going to happen. And I told my friends, like, and then we would ask him questions, and he would be like, I don't know, my computer's not really working, so I can't really look. Like, it was a lot of deflecting and things. It was interesting to me.
I want to know more about the preview center, because we haven't really been there in a long time. So what sort of like tour? What did you get to tour with them?
It's still, they walk you into the little prefab building that's across the street from that lobby, and it's still the studio and one bedroom from Riviera.
Oh, okay.
And I asked flat out, because the first time I was at Saratoga Springs, I actually went and did that, and they showed me a Grand Villa that was a Saratoga Springs Grand Villa that was vacant.
Oh, yeah.
And I flat out asked, I'm like, you want to sell these guys, show them the Grand Villa, because they have a big family, and that's what they're going to be booking. And he's like, I don't have one. And it wasn't even like, let me look at some of the other inventory or price, like there was no effort at all, which is a bummer, because that Saratoga Springs Grand Villa is amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had
They could have showed them at least a Matterport version of the room or something. They have them. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or they know websites that do.
And it was spring break, so maybe legitimately they were sold out and they didn't have the availability, but I didn't feel like he looked. It was weird.
Was the only room that they showed you in that building Riviera? That was it?
Yes. That's the studio and the one bedrooms at Riviera. That's all they had. For us. I don't know if they had other things.
They used to have like 7 other rooms in there.
They had a
They
Lonnie.
used to have a Lonnie, yeah.
Well, they had Alani, and then they had Animal Kingdom, and then they had the Grand Floridian. So for a time, it was 3, that you could go. And that was part of the powerful thing about it, was like, guys, you're not just buying this resort, right? So you guys, this is Riviera. This is going to be your home. This is the benefits of you buying this home. But let's take a look, because you might want to, on a later stay, let's go to Hawaii. And then you go into the room for Hawaii. That's part of the power of the whole tour.
And maybe it was because they're pretty good at gleaning the information they need to get from that first initial sit down, right? Because it's a good 45 minutes before you go out, because they're trying to, well, how do you like to travel, and where do you go, and all the things, right? And we had already.
Are you like under a fake name, like?
I know that was
Barry Smith
under my friends, because they're the ones that were looking at buying, right?
Jaslam.
But Jeffrey Jaslam. But we had just stayed at Animal Kingdom Lodge and Boulder Ridge, and they told them that. And so I wonder if that's maybe where they're like, oh, well, they've seen Animal Kingdom, and so let's just get them in and out as fast as we can.
Okay,
So they don't
it says in the materials it's a quick 30-minute tour, but you were definitely there longer than that, right?
We were there 3 hours.
What did you do for 3 hours in 2 Riviera rooms?
The first hour was the
Took a shower.
So, okay, actually, that's not fair. It was probably 2 hours. We went in at 1:00, and they didn't have any guides. They were all at lunch. So we went over to Artist Palette and ate, came back, and then it started. But the first 45 minutes, like I said, was, where do you like to travel? Have you stayed at Disney Vacation Club? Where do you stay when you're not? And then it was probably half-hour tour, and then the rest of the time was them trying to convince them.
I wish that at the end of your meeting, the guy said, when are you recording your next batch of shows? That would have been great.
I just want to apologize to the cardiologist for the sales manager of all of these DVC guides when they hear that you guys had to wait because all of the guides were at lunch, because that would, like, if I was in charge of that, I would blow
Forget
my
it.
lid. Like,
Can't take your lunch at a different time, guys?
could you imagine?
Stagger
Like,
a
again,
little bit,
it
have
is a
somebody in-
great.
yeah.
It is a great analogy to a used car lot. Could you imagine walking on a car lot to buy a car and saying, you're going to have to wait like a half hour, we're all eating in here, and like all the car places have like the glass windows, so you're literally just going to sit there and watch them eat. Like,
You know how many
And
days?
it's funny too, because every time I would correct the guy, I wouldn't say correct. I wasn't trying to be a know-it-all, but they would ask a question and he would either try and find it, and then if they didn't know, I would say, well, actually, it's this. The guy would cover up his name tag and be like, yeah, I'm not really supposed to tell you that. You know what I mean? Like, he was pretty cool about being...
Okay. I
He
think
knew
they're
what he
very
got.
restricted to what they can say and what they can
Yeah.
answer. And I think
they
that
knew that they
yeah.
could clearly tell that I knew what I was talking about. And so he was funny. He'd be like, Well, the official line is,
Yeah.
Well, and sadly, they have lost a lot of good guides for these very reasons over the years, and they lost a lot more during the pandemic. They've done a lot of changes to the commission structure that the agents work under. Anyone that follows news out in Los Angeles, the guides actually out in California are unionizing currently.
Oh,
There was a
wow.
big article that was written in one of the newspapers out there, and they're basically trying to get better wages. And I don't know if those are some of the veteran guides that are still around that have been out there, but our experience when we went out there for the grand open of Disneyland Hotel, it was very similar to kind of what you're saying, Jeff, is a lot of lack of education. And surprisingly, like, I understand they're out there selling the California product, but you got to know what the product is out in Orlando, because that's where the bulk of the business is. And these people were like some of them hadn't even been to any of the properties in Orlando yet. They just really knew the basically what they were selling out in California. And it's like the education process here, there's got to be a lot more education here. Go ahead, Derek.
Oh no, I was just gonna say you nailed it perfectly. And there's the famous story that when Disney Vacation Club started in 1991 and they brought the idea to Michael Eisner, is that Michael Eisner, of course, it was timeshare. It was like you heard that word and you wanted to go, scrub yourself in the shower with a wire brush. It was just a dirty, dirty word. And Michael Eisner said, okay, if we're going to do this, if we're going to do it, and we're going to have people in the parks trying to get people to go on tour, if I get one complaint, I'm shutting this whole thing down. So those guides back then, and they trained them for years and years and years. When I had my guide training, and this is back in probably 2006, 2007, I had 8 weeks of training, 8 weeks of guide training. And I knew the product because I was a Disney nut. So I knew all the product. It was 8 weeks of training, of role playing and going through the product and all the product knowledge and how to, basically it was all about what we like to call, what they did is a counselor salesperson approach. It wasn't just about going in there, slinging heat, trying to get them to sign. You show up with commission sweat coming off your body because you just want those people to buy so you can move on to your next one. It was about, you would take tours that were 2, 3, 4 hours and they would buy, but you were building relationships. And I think, and I've heard from many, many people, and it's unfortunate that over the last, few years or so, they might have, maybe because some great people, left for various reasons. And maybe they're bringing in people that came from different environments. So I've just unfortunately heard a lot of different stories where it really is kind of that, like, let's try to churn them and burn them versus, building that relationship. So that's kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And just to kind of illustrate what we're talking about here, one of the things that really floored me, this was the big miss on their part. My friends made the mistake of saying, well, the only reason that we're not buying DVC right now is we like to go other places. So then he leaned way heavy into the international front. And I'm like, okay, this is actually something that I don't know. We talk about what a bad deal it is, but I've just kind of always taken your word for it. I'm like, that's actually something I don't know. Why don't you explain that to me? What's the trade? Like, what's the currency? How does it? And he's like, well, let me see if I can bring it up. But his computer didn't work. He's like, well, do you have your phone? You can just log into the DVC website and look it up.
That guy's at lunch.
Yeah. And I'm like,
it's very confusing on the website.
So I did. And I'm like, okay, well, where do you want to go? And they were like, well, let's go to Paris in September. And so I pulled it up and I'm like, well, this is the point exchange and it's terrible. And the guy's like, oh no, that's a good deal. But I'm like, you didn't even know how to do it. How can you tell me it's a good deal? You couldn't even tell me where to go to find it.
When Panda was talking about a change in tactics, I thought that you were thinking, Jeff, about your experience this week that we had canceling something. It wasn't related to, it's not related to DVC, but we unfortunately canceled a cruise this week.
The Disney Treasure.
The Disney Treasure. We just decided it was a little overpriced and we found something else that we wanted to sail that was longer and the ports were more interesting. So basically we canceled that treasure cruise and I had a rough time. I didn't do it online. I called because we had 2 sets of future cruise credit, one that actually expires next month that we never used, and one that we used for the treasure. So I just wanted to talk through, how do I get that not a future cruise credit. It was a placeholder. I wanted to see how I could get my placeholder back. And they were very crass on the phone with me. Very like, well, why don't I just rebook it for you? Or, you know what I mean? Like just, it was not very nice and Disney-like. I was really shocked. And then Jeff, you canceled yours too.
I did it the same day. I didn't call though. I did mine through the chat, the online chat, but it was still the same thing. It was a lot of, well, we have a lot of cruises. Let's book you on something else. I'm like, I don't want to go on something else. And they're like, well, why did you cancel? Or why are you canceling? I'm like, I have a wedding coming up.
Because I hate you.
On your $7,000
I know, I lied
cruise.
too. And I feel like maybe I should have just told the truth. It's too expensive. I booked Royal Caribbean instead.
Yeah, right. But it took a lot of convincing, so to speak, to say, I want to quit the gym. Like, I want out.
Nice friends, right?
And they did finally cancel it, and we got my full refund, but it was more work than I wanted it to be. That's for sure.
So they're either getting a lot of cancellations right now, or they just are being told to try really hard not to let cancellations happen. I don't know. I've never experienced that kind of pushiness with a Disney brand before. That was the first time.
Do we think, and I know that's cruise line, but I mean, it kind of goes on to the DVC side too. It used to be you could get the money for a Disney cruise because they only had 2 ships. Now they have like 17 or whatever the hell it is now. And same with DVC, we've got 5 active properties or whatever. I don't know. It just seems like they've maybe oversaturated themselves a little bit and the value might not be there. Sorry, my dog wants to get on my lap. I don't know. That's just one thing that I was thinking about. I don't know.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head with, the value potentially is not there like it used to be because they've saturated the product. And you look at the historic properties, the ones that all of us as members love to stay in, those are the ones that people keep going back to. There's a reason that they added on more at Grand Floridian because everyone loves what's there. There's a reason they're adding more to the Polynesian. It's because everyone loves what's there. Riviera was a win, I do think. I think they did it well. I think a lot of people that own there love it. It is a beautiful property. It is a win. But some of these other things, like, we're going to talk in a future show. I don't want to go into it here, but Fort Wilderness is a miss right now. It is a big miss. And we're going to unpack that in next week's episode of the DVC show. But, they are struggling to relate to the consumer, I think, in this day of age. And some of these other companies are catching up and catching up quick. Let us not forget that down the road, there is a brand new resort that is going to open in 2025, and it looks absolutely amazing. We just a couple weeks ago had the investor call with Disney, and their answer to the question of lack of response to Universal was that, we've been responding all along with this. And I mean, all you have to do is look at all of us shaking our heads, just going, no, Tron was not a response. Tron was a response, if anything, to Velocicoaster, which they built in a couple months when everyone was sleeping during the pandemic.
Disney did have 2 new cupcakes to announce, though.
Yeah,
They're announcing 2 new cupcakes.
And you know what? I did not get the Earth Day Wally cake from Amorette's, and I was upset about that. We never made it up for that.
Well, to your point, Paul, Universal has also been adding things for the last 2. You talked about, Velocicoaster, but let us not forget Hagrid's and Diagon Alley. And I mean, Fast and the Furious could go away and nobody would care, but they have also been investing in their parks over the last 10 years. And so when he said in the conference call, we built Pandora that nobody wanted in the first place. It's fine. It's great. It's a beautiful area, but come on, that's decades.
It's 1.5. There's 1.5 attractions. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to fully diss direct sales because I do think that 99% of all owners of Disney Vacation Club at some point are going to become a hybrid owner. Jeff, you did it. Panda is already looking at add-on contracts. He'll become a hybrid owner. We've done it. Most owners, I think. I wish there was a way to get the statistic because I would love to have it, but I think a large portion of owners are going to at some point decide to have some sort of direct contract and some sort of resale contract. And so it is good that they are reacting. It is, I think, a good thing that they are making some of these changes, because it shows that they are looking at their system and going, something's broken. We need to fix it. And so
no more lunches. You hear me? No more lunches.
I wish I could be in that meeting, because it's going to happen. But they are learning. They are doing more surveys, and I think that the product in the future is going to be brighter. And as to Derek's point earlier, it goes hand in hand with resale. It's good that they're reacting, because resale and direct, they are not evil stepbrothers or something. They're not going against each other. They have to work together. If Disney doesn't keep building and doing new DVC resorts, there's not going to be resale contracts to be sold. So these things have to happen. And the last thing I'll close with in terms of the direct thing is the one true benefit of buying direct is the instant gratification. Is Panda, you signed the contract and you had your points, right?
I think 3 days later, I'm going to say.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 2 days.
That's long.
That's long, because when we signed for Boardwalk, they dropped us off from the preview center at Magic Kingdom, and we had them in our account by the time we got to Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
I could have done it on a Friday evening, possibly, and it was.
But he was
Monday
new. He was
new too.
You were
so,
new,
yeah,
and we were existing, so that's probably the difference.
Probably
too.
a little bit there, but
I still thought that was fast too.
Yeah.
I thought 3 days was fast.
There is not any right of first refusal process or anything like that we'll get into here on the resale side of the purchase process. But there's the instant gratification, and then obviously the additional, I'll put in parentheses, perks and benefits, which can go away at any time. But the FOMO
and can be very hard to use.
Yeah,
very hard to use.
I think the FOMO for most people, fear of missing out, is what drives them towards that, and gets them to pull the trigger on that direct contract, because they like the benefit of Moonlight Magic, they like the benefit of the annual passes, and Disney Vacation Club has done very well recently in a lot of these smaller sort of benefits scattered throughout the year to make members feel special. And so I give them total credit for that, and say that if that stuff makes you feel extra magical and sparkly inside, then do that. We did it. We bought direct for that reason, and we also bought direct for that reason because at the time we could do so for 50 points, not as many points as there are today.
Yeah.
But.
And lastly, one of the other benefits is going to be that your points are not restricted as to where you can use them. You are able to use them at the other resorts, but then if you have points that are purchased direct, and they've been purchased direct after a certain point, when you go to sell those, they do. Well, I guess all of us do. If we would sell any of our direct contracts, they are going to have restrictions on them to whoever buys them. So that does, that kind of affects your value a little bit. But, it is nice to have some points that you can use wherever you want.
So, Derek, the rest of us are going to nap now while you talk about the resale process of buying in 2024. But we've talked about buying a bunch of times before, but I think the one thing we really want to hint on here is the nuances and some of the stuff that has changed in the resale buying process, similar to what we've discussed with direct. There's been a lot of changes that, again, have evolved out of the pandemic that have made things easier in certain regard. The lack of ROFR. So give us a quick rundown, and then we'll kind of go over a couple other bullet points.
Yeah. And, coming to buy with us, and when you come to our website, dvcresalemarket.com, you'll see that we have over almost 900 listings for people to be able to pick and choose from. I always want to stress to people that when they look to say 900 listings, those are live listings. There are many other smaller companies out there that have lots of listings per se, but I will personally tell you probably at least multiple times a week, someone will tell me, oh, I reached out to XXX company because I found a great listing that looked like it was at a great price. But when I tried to buy it or make an offer on it, they told me that it was already sold, and then they tried to steer me somewhere else. So we will tell you every listing that we have is live. We don't just kind of put out like a red herring just to kind of draw you to it. Look, it's a Polynesian contract for $15 a point. And then you go in there And then they tell you, oh no, that's gone. So all of our listings, over 900 of them, are live. The whole process takes 60 to 80 days per se. I like to tell people too that we say 60 to 80. It can many times be a little bit shorter than that. So it's almost like when you see a ride and it says the wait time is XXX, and then you happen to ride the ride and it was, oh wow, that was a lot shorter than I thought it was. So we want to pleasantly surprise you, but we want to set the right expectations of that 60 to 80 day time frame. Like you said, Paul, too, that's probably a thing that people ask, because when they start shopping, they're chomping at the bit. They want to start booking as soon as they possibly can, but we have to tell them and say, listen, you saving 20, 30 grand is definitely going to, be worth your waiting, 45, 50, 60 days to be able to go through that process, which is all done online. So it's incredibly seamless. I want to stress to people, because a lot of people have that shield up when they start looking at resale, is that they feel like they're not going to be treated the same, right? So they feel like, well, I was told that I'm not, really going to be a member because I don't get the perks. So they're kind of worried, like, God, am I going to check in? And they're going to whisper under their breath when I check in or whatever. Am I going to have to use like a bootleg website when I go ahead and book? We work with Disney the whole entire process on 4,000 or 5,000 contracts the whole entire year. When you finalize your contract, Disney is the one that emails you. Disney Vacation Club emails you and says, congrats, welcome home. Here's your membership details so you can go ahead and set up your website and start to book. You're still going to use the same phone number to call. You're going to do everything else exactly the same. So believe me, you are not treated any differently whatsoever. But probably overall, Paul, the main thing is time. It does take a little bit more time, but I think the biggest benefit is being able to pick the resort you need versus, sitting down with Disney on vacation and them telling you, okay, you've got these 4 to 5 resorts to be able to go ahead and pick and choose from. Yeah, well, I really like, we really like the beach club area, or we really love the boardwalk, or, we're really fans of this resort. With us, we want you to be able to pick the resort that you need. And most importantly, again, why do people buy with us? Is because you're going to save anywhere from 20 to 60% versus buying direct with Disney. So that's a huge, huge deal. But it is it is an easy process, all done online. So when that offer gets accepted, we send you the contracts within 24 hours. You sign via DocuSign. You put down a 10% down payment, which if you want to throw on a credit card, you're more than welcome to do that. Disney card, reward card. Then we go into the ROFR process, which again, we would love to be able to close these contracts in, 2 days, 5 days, but we're working with Disney, so we have to play by their rules. So then it gets shipped off to ROFR, which again, we always say 30 days, but hopefully it can be a little bit sooner. We let you know the day the contract goes in. We let you know the day it comes out. Then we move on to the estoppel. We send you the closing documents. Our title company, our concierge department works with you the whole entire time. So at any point, if you have any questions about the process, you'll be able to reach out to us. And then we get the best job of all, which is to finally say, hey, congrats, welcome home, welcome to the Disney Vacation Club family. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Just in listening to you talk, it takes me back to the conversation we had about direct and the difference in the buyers these days. And the one thing that I thought of was, there used to be this benefit of people going and buying the new flashy property direct and knowing that they had a contract for 50 years. I don't know that younger millennial buyers or zennial buyers view it the same way. I'm going to use a shocking statistic that I heard one point that is just a case example, but they say that people in our generation or in generations that are younger than Amy and myself and stuff like that. I read a statistic one time that the average marriage, a lot of people will have 2 or 3 marriages over the course of their lifetime. And I think we're not getting divorced. I love you to death, and we will always.
No, Amy smiled way too much, by the way, thinking of her next husband.
Yeah. Maybe you don't know you're getting divorced. Maybe it's not your fault.
When he said it, she was like, Charles.
This analogy is going nowhere fast. I think people these days are younger generations are more instant gratification. What is the it thing today? What is the thing I'm interested in today?
They're not thinking 50 years.
They're not. No. And the thought process of, you can deed it to your your kids down the road.
I think that's any young person though. They don't usually look forward. Like I think, I don't know, I'm speaking just for myself, over 45, where you tend to look back now and go, wow, I wish I did this back then. So I would like to get to those people and tell them buy it now. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
So does that make resale more appealing? Does that make it, to Derek's point that he made about having all of these other resorts and having these other things to choose from? They may look at a boardwalk or a beach club and go, I don't care if it's 20 years. I want to stay right here. Like, I want to be right here. And how they spend their money, these just younger generations are of a different mindset and they think differently. And I think that for Disney Vacation Club, that's where the product is going to have to shift.
And I think they're already recognizing that a little bit, because look at those old Key West incentives that just came out. Have we ever seen anything like that? No. Right? And I think they're realizing that they can't sell a property that's going to, and I know Old Key West is 2057 direct, but still they can't sell that for 205 a point like they can with the Poly. Like, they're going to have to start doing some things with those resorts that are expiring earlier, because they're just not going to hold their value. 10 years from now, what are we going to do?
Yeah. And Paul, I think you nailed it on the head 100%, because way back when, that was one of the biggest things that we were trained on, right? Is that you're going to be able to buy this, you're going to be able to pass it on to your kids, you're going to be able to pass it on to your grandkids, and to be able to have this. And I would get people from time to time saying, yeah, I know, but I only get it for like 50. And this was way back when. Yeah, but I only get it for like 50 years. But my cousin has a Hilton or a Wyndham or a Marriott, and they get it forever. And I used to always say, great. So tell me how that timeshare is in the year 3042. Like, you don't care. You know what I mean? 50
and the maintenance, and those hotels are not. My sister bought a timeshare, which I don't consider my DVC a timeshare. I know it is, but I just can't say it. She bought it at some Italian place. I forget the name of it, in New York. And after 8 years, it went downhill. The food was bad. The management is different. She had to get rid of it. With Disney, you're pretty safe.
Olive Garden?
Could say, yeah, right? No, what was it? Villa
You
Roma?
had told us this before. I wish I could remember what it was.
I think it's called Villa Roma. It's not the same.
Yes, that's it. It is. Yeah, you said that. Derek, I don't know if have any idea of what this is, but what do you guess is the average amount of time that somebody keeps their Disney Vacation Club? Because I'm willing to bet that most members don't keep it the full till expiration.
I remember, and don't quote me on it, but I think it's around that like 10 to 12 years.
That's what I thought. I was thinking 10 years.
And people will say all the time, like when they first buy, because again, you're in the ether, you love this thing, it's the greatest thing in the world, and you try to tell them, oh, the great thing is you could sell it. Oh, I ain't ever going to sell this. Just so you know,
that's how I feel right now.
Exactly. But there's a reason that we sold like 5,000 contracts and $90 million last year, is because some of those people said, this has been fantastic. We love it more than anything in the world. But you know what? We're kind of done for whatever reason. Maybe it's a financial reason, maybe it's a family reason, whatever it is. But that's what we're here to do, is to be able to help kind of give you an out. Versus, again, whether you buy direct or whether you buy with us, the difference is whether you buy with us, you're going to pay less. So when it comes to selling, you're not going to have to kind of recoup as much as you do if I buy a $250 property direct from Disney. 10 years from now, you ain't going to sell it for $250, right? But for us, there's so many people that when they go to sell, that they're like, God, this is amazing. We've had it for the last, 12 years. We bought it for, I always say XXX, but we bought it for whatever the price it was. And now, hey, you know what? We broke even on it. Or maybe we actually came out ahead. But that's the biggest thing, is that at least if you're going to go to Disney and take these trips, you don't have a membership. You can't, again, call Disney saying, can I get any money back for all these 10 trips that I've taken? At least if you own this, you have something, and you may not want to ever sell it, but thank God that we're here, to be able to help you, and the DVC rental store. So if you run through a rut of maybe years where you're not using it, you don't have to just sell it. Call the DVC rental store and rent those points out. And maybe in that interim, your life has changed, or maybe your finances have changed, and then you still have it. So there's lots of out. But yeah, I bought mine. So my boardwalk expires in 2042, and I've had mine for 20 some years. The fact that I think that I got like how many more years left on it, I'm like, holy cow, that's a lot left.
That's awesome. There were two things about the resale market process that I did want to hit on that I think are significant changes here in 2024 in the buying process. First, you already mentioned, what'd you say, 800 some odd contracts currently available?
900.
900.
Close to 900. Yeah.
Yeah,
The exact
some-
number, in case I sell one right now, is
Yeah.
863. Total.
So I remember writing the average price in Rofer blog, which I write for DVC Resale Market like a year ago, and talking about how it was a buyer's market when there were 600 contracts. So the fact that there's 800 to 900 definitely, I think, would say that we are currently in a buyer's market. And Derek, tell us a little bit about what that means in terms of the negotiations that maybe they can have with a seller and the wiggle room that there might be on pricing a little bit, because it sounds like there's going to be a little bit more room to negotiate those things.
Yeah, because buyers have more to be able to pick and choose from, right? So if I'm looking at a 200-point Saratoga Springs contract, it's not like I'm down to 3 listings to be able to pick and choose from. I might be able to go onto the website and find, 30, 40, 50 different listings to be able to pick and choose from. And that's what, in a buyer's market, and we tell sellers this too all the time, is you own points. You don't own a house. So it's not just that one perfect house that's on the corner right across the street from the school. And oh my God, it's such a perfect house. It's just points. So buyers are going to have lots to be able to pick and choose from, right? So they're going to look for wiggle room. And if you're not going to wiggle, they'll just move on to the next one or move on to the next one. So you're going to have more to be able to pick and choose from. That wiggle room, which is what a lot of people always ask about, well, how much wiggle room? Like, can I offer like $50 less a point? Like, don't. People do it every day, but just don't. Just because we try to tell you it's usually, $10 or $2 to maybe $10 a point, depending on the size of that listing. And of course, depending on the seller. So in the same day, I could reach out to a seller of, say, a 200-point listing, and they say, no, we'll take $2 less. But a different seller for literally almost identical points might take $10 less per point. So you never know until you reach out. But being able to have so much to be able to pick and choose from, we even have, I think we're down to like 40 of what we call certified hot deals. These are listings to where the sellers agreed to list at 10% below the current market. And they are flying out of there. So you can go find them on our site using our search bar and the filter, find certified hot deal. We're down to like 40. And when they're gone, that's it. So those are flying out of here too. And it's that perfect storm because there's really no rofer, right? I mean, overall, to have to kind of worry about. So it was always, you got to pick one evil or the other, right? So I'm going to get a great price, but I ain't sleeping because I know Derek's going to call me and tell me that contract was bought back. But now people get great prices and you have a good night's sleep too, because odds are, maybe unless it's a Polynesian, but yeah, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's definitely a buyer's market. And in particular, that's why I have this shirt on, Poly. We're down to 11 Polynesian listings, which is the lowest amount that we've ever had. We know why. We know why, because you can use the points for the new tower. So once Disney, really starts getting official with all that, and they announce the pricing, which we've all talked about it, we think it's going to be like, in that 250 range. That's why we're flying out of Polynesian contracts. So people can look back and say, God, I bought my Polynesian for like $100 less a point back when they had them. So,
and DVC and the Rover Disney Direct and the Rover Monster is awake on Polynesian specifically. We are seeing probably on average anywhere from 2 to 5 rovers a week right now for Polynesian contracts. It is the only thing that they're moving on right now, and so there's got to be a reason for that. And, I think it just aligns with everything we know about the new Polynesian Tower and how it's going to be a part of the existing association. So they are kind of sitting back and putting some points in their pocket for one reason or another to get ready for everything. But you kind of hit the second point that I was going to bring up, which was Rover for sure. Is it's a smoother process these days. It does seem like regardless of what they decide, they're moving at a much faster pace. Yeah. So that used to be a lot more painful of a process, especially back in the years where Rover was even the bulk of last year. Rover was heavily active. We were reporting hundreds of Rovers a month, and now
2022, I think, not 23.
Yeah, well, the beginning of last year there was a portion of time that we had some, but yeah, just back then it was a lot more of a stressful environment, and that process is less stressful for now? Question mark.
I can tell you, which is kind of funny. I mean, not funny per se, but speaking of ROFR, it used to be a daily occurrence back, like you were talking about, when they would notify us, and I had to notify Jeff, as a matter of fact, one time. But we would every day I would sign into my computer and I'd start to work, and I would say, hey, here's the list of all the contracts that Disney bought back. So you got to reach out to all of your buyers. And sometimes it was a long list of people, and I'd have to be the one to, reach out to your buyer that you had a relationship with and say, God, I'm so sorry they bought it back, but you know what? Hey, let's, switch it over to a different listing and try again. We went through over a year plus where they didn't buy anything back. So it was last week. They sent me an email and it just said ROFR buyback. And I clicked on it and it was like, here's a Polynesian buyer of yours that had their contract back. And I had to think, I was like, oh my God, how do I do this? How do I tell them they bought their contract back? I had such a thing down, and I was like, working on my emails, like, how do I work on this again? But we were able to find him something else, so he's very, very happy. But yeah.
Hey there, Jeff. Remember that thing that I said probably would not happen? Like, just like asteroid hitting the Earth chances of happening. It happened.
He was in Hawaii, right, Jeff?
Jeff's dog changed color.
So that's funny. I had left my phone in our cabana, and I had just gotten off the lazy river.
Such a rough
and
life.
Back to my phone, and I was like, "Oh,
nuts."
What were you buying at the time?
It was a weird juxtaposition because I was like in the best place in the world, but getting the worst news at the same time. So I was like, I don't know how to feel.
All right, so we've kind of overviewed the direct and the resale buying process as it stands here in 2024. I'm gonna have us close off by going around the room and just predicting kind of the future. What do we think if we refilm this show in 2025 or in 2030, let's say? We will all have a few more wrinkles, except Amy, because she will be beautiful forever. And
He really doesn't want me to take that second husband.
I really, yeah. But if we would predict the future of this market, if we would predict the future direction of where things are headed in terms of Disney Vacation Club and kind of the approach they take to selling, what's our thoughts there? Jeff, I'll kick things off with you.
Sure. I think they're going to have to do something incentive-wise to bring people back to the table more than they have, because once Poly goes on sale, we're going to have cabins, we're going to have Poly. Aulani is going to be on sale till it expires. Disneyland Hotel, Riviera, that's supply and demand. You have too much. You have to do something to bring people in, or they're going to have to start looking at bringing back, you get fast passes and park ticket. I don't know, something to bring people back to the table, because like Derek said, there's 800 other contracts over here that are half the price. I have noticed you're not giving me enough for my direct contract anymore to make it exciting for me. I would never buy direct now. Back then it was a good move because I didn't have to buy so many points, but 150 points at 250 a piece. Sorry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Amy?
It's funny. I don't know how many months ago. It was like a year to a year and a half ago. We did a whole show about how to avoid right of first refusal. And we literally talked just tactics, buying from an international seller and, checking out what the prices are being ROFR'd at and going a little bit above that and those sorts of things. Buying, these types of contracts and these resorts that aren't being bought. But, it's just funny because and during that time, we had saw someone that had tried, I think, like 8 times to buy Bay Lake Tower and gotten, ROFR'd each time. So
I remember that.
It's interesting to see how the market and how things shift and how things change, and that today we're having such a different conversation than what we had then. So honestly, if you had asked me back then, if this is what we're going to be talking about now, if we, are we going to go a whole year without right of first refusal pretty much? Like, I would have never guessed that. So honestly, I feel like, anything could happen at this point. But I do agree with what Jeff said. They are going to need to, especially with like Fort Wilderness right now. Very shocked when, we went through all these different, okay, now you can pay cash and book, and, owners can book, and this and that. And after all that, there was still a ton of availability when we went to book. We didn't get the first. We probably could have if we woke up a little earlier. It started earlier than it was supposed to. But even hours later, after the booking window for non-owners at that resort, all of August was still open. Yep. All of November
Still
was
is.
still open. Yeah, there's
August
still a
is.
lot. Mm-hmm. And Panda, did you end up booking? Did you have any issues?
No, I got 2 nights, the dates I wanted over the weekend in August, and it's still available, even though I booked it.
So I was really I was shocked. I didn't think it would be that available. And we're talking like one loop is going to be open. So, that really says something to the sales going on right now, which I know we're going to dive into Fort Wilderness a little bit more. But just like Jeff said, they're going to have to bring some better incentives or some better deals in order to bring people to buy those resorts.
Derek, really quick, have they ever, and I honestly don't know the answer to this question, so have they ever dropped the price of something permanently? No. Or has it always been incentive based?
Always incentive based. Always.
I just wonder if they're not selling some of this stuff, or they're like, well, we priced ourselves too high, we got to do like an immediate liquidation, let's cut it down. But anyway.
Yeah.
And I think to that point, the only thing that is in their favor is that they can essentially rent these rooms, because that's what they're doing with the points that they're still holding. They're selling them as cash reservations. So, they're still going to be able to, even if they struggle with Fort Wilderness, they're still going to be able to book those cabins up, with guests while they're still trying to sell the Disney Vacation Club property. And maybe, we've alluded to this before, and we'll talk about it in other shows, but maybe that's all part of a master plan. We just don't know from our perspective. So, Panda, any insight on the future?
I've got this crazy optimistic look, and the it comes from if Disney wakes up and starts doing these expansions of parks, big expansions, possible Cars ride in the Magic Kingdom and Epcot and all these things. And now we think they just pulled permits for the Imagination Pavilion. If all these things come and then they announce something like a night parade, I feel like it's going to invigorate again people to come to Disney. I think we're going to start to see the Poly open, maybe another DVC resort. I think it's going to be big. And I think we're going to go back to that big time Disney stuff once they wake up and start expanding and building more stuff.
Yep.
So I think it's good.
Yep.
And I think we're going to start to see more lounges. Maybe that's their big way to try to incentivize you to go, direct.
Who knows? Yeah. Derek, any lingering thoughts for the future?
I'm going to open up my office here as a resale lounge. So if people want to
just open the front door, invite them in, have a cooler of beer off to the side. And,
exactly. I think, and we've talked about it too, that's what we love about these shows and talking to such a great audience, is that we do kind of dissect everything. But I think at the end of the day, and I always want to tell folks that maybe are not Disney Vacation Club members, it's still the greatest product that you can buy. Hands down, bar none. When I went 2 days ago, I went to go visit one of our viewers was in Old Key West, and they reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to pop by for a drink? And I said, yeah, you know what? So I went over, met with them. I met so many members that were there at Old Key West. It was phenomenal. And these people are on vacation. It was a beautiful sunny day. They're loving their vacation club membership. So I think at the end of the day, are there things that are kind of strange that's happening? Yeah. I mean, if you would have told me 20 years ago that Disney at one time direct would be selling 4 or 5 live products at one time, I would have said, are you kidding me? So I think you nailed it. There's just too much out there right now for people to kind of, be able to kind of focus on. But hey, I mean, the more choices that people have, it's just for those direct sales, it's just more reasons for people to say, you know what, this is great, but I got a lot to think about which resort I kind of want to buy. So I think that's probably what's hurting them the most, is just too many choices. But again, at the end of the day, whether you buy direct or whether you buy with us on the resale market, you're going to love it. I promise you.
What was
it's
it?
changed my life.
Yeah.
What was it?
I mean, I'm a local. Every other month I'm staying at a hotel in Disney. That never would have happened
Yeah.
had it not been for DVC.
Boom.
What was it that one of the people came up to you and said? I was hoping I was going to meet a famous influencer or something.
Someone, this great couple came up and said, "Hey, I don't want to bother you, but we watch you on the DVC shows all the time." They were so sweet and so kind, and we took some pictures. And as she was leaving, she was like, "You know what? We're here on vacation, and really, like, one of the things I really wanted to do was to be able to meet, a Disney vlogger." And I told her, and I said, "Well, the great news is, after you've met me, it's only up from here." So,
Not true at all.
Well, we hope this was educational for everyone out there watching and listening. We hope that, it's kind of been insightful as to how we sit here in 2024 and how different it is, to Amy's point, than the things we were talking about and worrying about 3 years ago. So give us your thoughts in the comments of this video or in the comments of this podcast. What's going on with Disney Vacation Club? Why are they making some of the changes that they're doing? What might we see in the future to kind of influence how they sell this product? Because you can bet that we will be here next Monday and many Mondays after this debating that exact point. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the DVC show. We hope you enjoy it. Thank you guys for the warm birthday wishes. And
blow out the candle, Paul. Blow.
We'll see you next Monday.